Tech Talk Tuesday, take 3.
Take 3. I don't know why we keep locking up and it's just lagging. But anyways, Tech Talk Tuesday, we're at take 3. We've had quite a few people trying to call in, and we're having fun. There's really good questions. But what we're going to do is try it one more time. We will put our number up here. And again, if you decide to call in, just make sure you delete whatever device you are on, as far as if it's a computer or phone or whatever the case may be. Let's make sure we get Mike in the window here. Hey, Mike.
What's up?
Yeah, again, sorry about the technical difficulties there. I don't know why we're having those issues. We shouldn't, but again, what we are trying to do is take live calls, but we are also answering calls in the chat. So feel free to call in and we will take your calls live and try to talk about your Bobcat equipment. So thanks for those of you who are coming back and finding us over on this side.
Thank
Justin,
you.
Jose, maybe we need to get Justin here as our technical service advisors, I think. So
I agree. If you
let's
can run a
see.
3D printer, you can run anything.
It's running a 3D printer in that capacity. And
Exactly.
I don't know.
And CAD. What do you use for the software? Is it
All
CAD?
right, cool. They say it's all good now. Yeah. How do you design that stuff? That's what I want to know. How do you design it with that precision? But anyways, all right, we're back now. We will try to get back on those phone calls. Looks like
Speak
we've
of the
got
devil.
someone coming in right now. All right. All right. Now you're back with us. Sorry about that earlier. What can we do with
Oh, that's totally okay. Are we on the live chat, or
we are
just on the
live, and apparently it is working at the moment. So let's go and see what happens.
All right. Well, thank you for taking my call. And so just to let you know, this is a new to me Bobcat. So the issue that I have, I bought it as a non-runner, and the guy told me that the fuel, it's an 863F, and I can give you the serial number. I know that is kind of important.
Okay.
It's 5144-29005, and it's an F series, 1999.
Okay. Mike's got that punched.
And okay.
All right, go ahead.
And he was telling me that he thought the that fuel intake line, it was plugged up. That happens on a lot of them.
Uh-huh.
But I got it started, and it seemed to be picking water up out of the bottom of the tank.
Okay.
And it died after running about 3 minutes. And I opened up the bottom of the fuel filter, and it was full of water.
Okay.
So my question to you, and I can't find this anywhere on the internet or a video of it, is how to drain the water out of the fuel tank. Because it appears that they've got a screen in there so you can't siphon it out. And I don't know how to get it out of there.
No worries. So on the F series, you should be able to crawl under the back of the machine, and there should be a little plate. It's like
There's 3 bolts.
Yeah, 3 bolts. And what's that? What'd you say, about maybe 1.5 inches, about maybe 4 or 5 inches?
The drain plug, if you're looking at it, it'll be on the right side.
Well, that's for the case. So you're going to see so when you get that plug off, you're going to see a rubber plug going into the tank, but there's also a rubber plug going into the chain case.
Oh.
And the chain case, you can kind of see it goes through the metal, but there'll be it's a rubber bushing with a steel plug going into it in the bottom of the fuel tank, and that's where you'll drain it at.
Okay. Do you have a video out there of anybody doing that, or you've never had to do that before?
I don't. Yeah, we do it. We get under there and fix those all the time because sometimes they leak when that bushing gets dry rotted or whatever. So we get under there and do that, but I just don't think I've got a video on that. But
okay,
it is kind of tight under there because that machine's kind of low to the ground, so you might want to jack it up a little bit. But when you crawl under the engine part, and slide in, you'll see that little plate with 3 bolts on it, and you'll once you get that off, now usually it's packed full of mud and debris and all that, so you'll have to dig out all that grease and oil and dirt and clean it up real good, and you'll find that plug for the tank.
Okay. And then how do you get the plug out of it? So I've looked at a picture if I bought a new rubber grommet for it,
Yep.
and it looks like it has a bullet that goes through the center of it. What do you do? That grab that with a pair of vice grips and put a bar on it or something, or how do you pull them out of there?
Yeah, they pull out pretty easy actually. So if you grab it with even a pair of pliers, but if you had vice grips, that should be able to grab it no problem. And you just wiggle it and just pull it right out of that rubber grommet.
Okay. And then I want to change the rubber grommet too. And as far as like getting all the water out of the tank, I'd probably have to pull that grommet out of there also, right?
Yeah, you're going to replace that grommet anyways. That's cheap insurance. So,
Oh.
yeah. Yep.
Okay.
You said you've already got
Okay.
one though, right?
I've got it on order. It's supposed to be here the 11th.
Yeah.
So,
So yep, pull the grommet out, pull that plug out, and it'll drain every drop of fuel out of it.
okay.
Water.
And it had some
And water.
black stuff. It had some black stuff that was coming through. You know that filter that's on the backside of the lift pump?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. So do you have a treatment for that? Do you recommend something? Because doesn't that come from just like diesel fuel sitting? It gets like mold in it or something, or
It does. Yeah, it'll grow like an algae in there. And what's that? I've got it back there on the shelf that we use as an algicide that you can get at any of your auto parts stores.
Diesel Pro.
Was it Diesel Pro or Mike's going to go back there and look real quick what I've got on the shelf, but you're going to run that, just go ahead and fill the tank up and just run that for a tank of fuel. And you'll probably want to drain it again, because depending on how much algae you have in there, it'll get real stringy, real nasty, and it'll break that stuff up, and it'll probably clog your fuel filter again, and probably that lift pump filter again as well.
okay.
But does it look
Okay.
like black debris? Or is
It does.
like thick? Okay, yeah.
It looks like it's kind of a slimy black stuff. I pulled that filter out of there and sprayed it off with some carburetor cleaner. Probably not the right thing to do, but
Nope, just fine.
I cleaned that filter off. And then I like I said, this is a new to me machine.
Mhm.
So the front, it only has a single cylinder that causes the tilt on the front of the bucket,
Mhm.
and that's leaking. How difficult do you have a video on that by chance?
So I've got a couple cylinder rebuild videos, not specifically on that tilt cylinder, but it'll be very similar to like the lift cylinder I did, I think, on a T250 or T300. Almost be the same
Yep.
thing. But the hardest thing with those single cylinder tilt cylinders is getting the head off. They're older machines. We've got aluminum head and a steel body, and you know what happens when we mix dissimilar metals together.
Right.
It can kind of
Right.
corrode in there. So that's going to be the hardest part, is getting the head off the cylinder. But if you can get that off, the rebuild on it's pretty easy.
Okay. So your recommendation, and I did watch your video on the T250 that you did. You left the cylinder on the machine and took the head off and pulled the thing out of it, if I recall correctly. Is that how you recommend doing that front cylinder like that, or do you recommend taking the whole cylinder off and putting it in a vise somewhere or something?
Whatever's easiest. If you can get to that, the gland nut, what I'm calling the head, if you can get to that with the cylinder in place, you can leave it in there, but it might be kind of tight getting that rod out with the bob attach will still be attached to it. So I don't know. On that machine, it might be easier just to pull the whole thing out.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you answering some questions for me. I really appreciate you guys doing this whole thing.
No
this
problem.
is a wonderful stuff.
Well,
You guys are great. Thank you so much.
yeah.
Have a good evening.
Thanks for
Thank
calling
you
in,
much.
and thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. See ya.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
I couldn't find it. I think it was Diesel Pro.
Yeah, I think it was Diesel Pro or something, but it worked pretty good. We had that one. It was a Caterpillar, and that
It
stuff
was
was
pink. It was
stringy, like
disgusting.
real nasty. Almost looked like spaghetti with
It
it,
was
man. It was
disgusting.
nasty.
It was everywhere.
Yeah, but
Right now we got a question.
okay.
18 S650 intermittent overheating, just bucket and service 20 hours ago. Intermittent overheating.
So on all those on a 2018, so M series machines, we have a. Or do you want to take this one, Mike?
I don't remember. You're
Yeah.
talking about the auxiliary?
No, what I think is we've got a hydraulic fan in there that uses pulsal modulation. We've got a fan speed coil on there. Usually, when it's an overheating issue, we're not getting full fan speed, so we might just have a wore out fan. So what I
Okay.
like to tell people to do is number one, make sure we're getting full speed to the fan, and how you do that is you will see a coil on your machine. If you got a reversing fan, if you have the reversing fan option, you'll have two coils. And we want to find the one that's more square. You might just have one coil. And usually I can get to it by taking that left-hand screen off the machine that kind of goes into where the fan assembly is. And while the machine's running, you got to be careful in there. But if you unplug that coil, you should hear that fan like increase in speed big time. Like it sounds like a helicopter taking off or a jet taking off. You know what I mean? So you should see a big noticeable increase between when the machine is cool and then when you unplug it. That's kind of simulating a hot machine. It's closing a valve, closing our bypass, make sure all our oil is going through the fan and spinning it at the utmost RPM possible. And I don't remember the RPM spec on that. I wonder if you could find that, but we could also put a little photo tack on there. You can get a photo tack on Amazon for $15. You put a little reflective strip on one of the blades and we'll measure top speed on it. But being that it's intermittent, I mean, there's a lot of questions I would ask. One is, are you running attachment when you get that intermittent issue? But more than likely, I think it's going to be a fan speed issue, and it could be that coil, it could be the stem, or it could be just the fan itself is wearing out, letting too much oil bypass out the case drain.
Well done.
Yeah, I thought you might have something to add to that.
Wiring issue?
It could be a wiring issue. You got to make sure that the cooling package itself is clean. They're pretty, especially on the 650s, are really good cooling packages. So as long as it's clean, majority of the time, it's always going to be a fan issue, fan speed issue. So let's see, what has Dan got? He said if metal gets pushed in the hydraulic system due to faulty brake pack in the drive motor. Oh, okay. He's asking a question. I thought he was going to tell us why it's overheating. So awesome. All right. So Jake in Florida's got a video call scheduled with us tomorrow. Good deal. I'll have to go back and see what that's about. Let's see. Dan says if metal gets pushed into the hydraulic system due to a faulty brake pack.
I got it's 1900 to 3500 RPM.
So 3,500 max. So you should be really close to that.
Mhm.
Thanks for finding that, man. Good job.
At cold engine, I guess a cold engine startup, 0 to 500 RPM till the engine coolant and the hydraulic fluid reach normal operating temperatures. Then it goes up to 1900. Like you said, 3,500 max.
3,500 max. So yeah, 19. So between when it's cold, when you first start the machine, you unplug it to 3,500. That's that thing is.
See, this is better for me.
Yeah,
I'm not as good at you as answering questions, but I can look up. I can look stuff up.
I know, man. This kid is good.
I'm not very good at the
technologically.
I don't have the
advanced.
experience. That's
So, all right, let's get back to Dan. Third time, just like Tech Talk Tuesday, take 3. Dan's question, take 3. What's the best method to clean the system after fixing the motor? So, brake pack material is usually going to only go through the case drain side. Case drain is going to go straight through the main filter.
the fan filter.
No, the main hydrostatic filter.
Okay.
So it doesn't go through the fan filter. All the case drain is going to go back through the main. So when you lose your brake pack, you still have a seal in place that kind of separates the hydraulic oil from the brake pack, but that brake pack material can still go through the case drain. Now, if you find that you actually had stuff in your hydrostatic pump, if it got that far, there's really, other than taking the whole machine apart and just taking the pumps apart and clean them out by hand, I don't know of a great way to do it, but
Get it warranted and get everything replaced for free.
yeah, get it warranted, I guess. But yeah, yeah, that one's tough. Usually there's nothing you have to do. Once it goes in the case drain, it's going to go through that main hydrostatic filter and you just change your filter. And usually that's the case. In most cases, you can just do that. So awesome. Well, we're almost caught up on that. I think we lost a lot of people because of the technical difficulties we were having in the other ones.
Yeah, feel free to call us with these questions, guys. If
Yeah, the phone calls are fun. This is our
Yeah.
first time actually taking phone calls, but it seems like it's working. I don't know why the internet locked up earlier on us. It
I
could have
don't
been
know.
just a slow connection, but
if you got any questions, feel free to give us a call.
yep. And
My
like we
phone
were
number
talking
is
about,
pinned.
yeah, like we were talking about earlier, we appreciate all the orders that we've had lately. You know, trying to get all these systems and stuff out as far as the I'm saying the software and our interfaces that we've done.
Yes.
We've been trying to get all that stuff put together and working and shipped out. We've shipped out quite a few last week. We're still making improvements. I kind of thought last night I came up with something that our interface for the Bobcat side is more for troubleshooting, not necessarily running updates. So if anybody wanted to run an update, I need to make an adapter to where we can power up the main controller, because if we update that, the controller will try to reset. And when it resets, it won't have power from the ignition switch, and it'll kind of lock up the machine. So that's an adapter that we're still working on. But so that's why we haven't posted anything on the internet. Most people just kind of email us and ask us about those questions, or about the software and the computers and stuff. So we're trying to keep up with them. I'm kind of out of material right now, but hopefully I've got some more coming and we'll be able to get back on track here in the next week or so. But let's see. Dan was asking, what's the best method to prevent issues with final drive face seals? It seems like every machine I get is empty and leaking.
Clean the dirt out from under there.
Yeah, I mean, number one,
Make sure your undercarriage is clean.
it's keeping the hub oil in it, but yeah, the undercarriage clean is the biggest thing, because it's the dirt, people getting string, like the kite string or whatever wrapped
Or
around it.
baling wire,
Bob wire. We've seen all kinds of stuff wrapped
hay
in there.
twine.
Yeah, but other than maintenance, Dan, I mean, making sure you keep that oil in there, because if they run dry, of course, the oil is lubrication for that face seal, and the oil is actually the seal that goes in between those two face seals. The oil in there is what does the sealing. So if you lose oil in there, then so maintenance is the best thing that I can say as far as keeping those face seals working properly. So
We had Justin Jose. He said he thinks it was a 770 unit would shut off. He found codes for the engine compartment over temperature. It had the rear cooling fans. Someone pulled the fuse out, put the fuse in, and fans were running with unit off. Oh.
Okay. Let's get back with this guy with the T870 real quick, and then we'll get back to Justin's thing there real quick. Hey, man.
Hey, okay. So we took off the solenoids and cleaned them with electrical parts cleaner.
Uh-huh.
And one of the hoses off of the that middle bank, whatever that is, I don't know if that's the swash plate bank or what, it was rubbing up against there. When I went to pull the solenoid, it was actually already loose, and it didn't even I didn't even have to squeeze the needle nose to pull it out. It just like fell out. So we took the solenoid off, cleaned it with parts cleaner, or cleaned it with electrical cleaner, put it back on. Now the machine's running fine, no code. We tried to do a pump calibration just for general principle, and it said we couldn't calibrate the pump, but there's no code. So I guess we'll just run it and see what happens. But that did work.
Okay, good. Well, at least you got that part fixed. Does it still feel that jerky that you said?
No.
Okay.
No, it runs perfect. We got it up on jack stands. It runs perfect in ISO and H, first speed, second speed. All the pressure's fine. Everything. The tracks are fine. No code. except for we were just thinking, well, while we got it up here, we'll do a pump calibration. But our beeper's broken, so we're not sure that after we hold down the forward and the tracks start to calibrate forward,
Mhm.
and then when we're doing a pump calibration and the tracks go forward, we don't know if we're supposed to wait to hear another beep before we let it go in neutral
So
because we don't have a beeper.
when at that point where you're holding it forward, the tracks will move forward and they'll spin, and then they'll keep spinning faster and faster and faster until they're spinning as fast as they can, and then they'll slow
Yes.
down. They'll ramp down, and then when the tracks
Yes.
stop, then you'll move the joystick backwards, and it'll do it again backwards. And then
Okay.
once
Yeah, that worked. Yeah, that did it. We did that twice, and we got it to go backwards, and it did the same thing backwards. But after it was completed with the backwards section, it threw a code that just said drive controller not calibrated, or let me see what it says.
Yeah, that's
So it's not throwing any codes. We tried to do the pump calibration, and it threw a code at the end that just said drive pump not calibrated after it got done with the reverse section.
did it. Okay. So it tried, but it just didn't lock it in for some reason. Okay. And I'm not sure why. Is it,
I don't know if there's any other active codes. It could be that there's another active code. It's just not showing up.
yeah, well, if it was active, it would show up.
Yep.
Yeah, on 870, because you've got
What about the, oh, go ahead.
you've got the deluxe panel, right? It would show the little exclamation point flashing at you.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so if you have an active code
on the
okay.
on the drive left swash plate out of position, to go back to that code.
Uh-huh.
Just curious. Okay, so on the back of the pump, if we have the cab up, the swash plate sensor is, you can't get to it, right, without pulling the motor. It's all the way at the back bottom, correct?
It is. I'm not going to say you can't get to it because you can pull the engine mounts and lift up the pump side.
Yeah, we would
Mhm.
we would pick it up with the pry bar as high as we can, and then we would put like blocks of wood in between the pump and the swash, or between between the pump and the
Pump and
fuel
the-
tank, and then that would barely give you enough room to work on it.
Yeah, it sucks, but it's not. It doesn't suck as bad as pulling the engine. So that's
Yeah.
so yeah, you can get to them without pulling the engine, but it is very difficult. Yes.
Well, what's weird? Okay, so what started all of this is the hydraulic oil cooler, fuel cooler, water cooler sprung a bad leak and started leaking oil all over everything, even though there's a guard.
Yep.
That was about a month ago. We pulled it off, took it into the local radiator repair shop. They pressure tested it, and they said there was no leak. But I know that there was a pinhole leak, but it came back, and I think that they just didn't weld it. They just gave it the old needle nose plier crimp,
Oh,
because
no.
now it's not leaking oil out of the oil cooler anymore. And it was leaking right dead center in the middle. So what I'm thinking happened is oil leaked over all of those sensors, because every sensor we pulled off the pump is full with oil. Like, it's dripping oil literally when we pull a solenoid.
Wow.
Yeah, that's hopefully that is just all residual oil.
You don't think that the pump leaks oil through the solenoid, right? No way.
It shouldn't, no, unless the it wouldn't be through the so yeah, we got a stem and a coil, and together, yeah, sometimes we call that a solenoid. But if the stem itself was cracked, maybe if it was rubbed through, maybe, but I can't say that I've ever really seen that.
I know.
But
I think it was just
possible.
residual oil
Yeah.
from the. Yeah, it had to be residual oil from the oil cooler, because what was happening was we kept pulling the little divider out, and then the fan, so it was leaking on top of the fan, and the fan was blowing it down there. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, it blows it everywhere. It's a mess.
Blows it everywhere. Exactly.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. And we're just going to run the machine tomorrow and play it by ear. And thank you for your website and thank you for everything you do. That fixed it for now. So
Awesome. Yeah. Let me know. Get that thing up good and hot. That was the last thing I was going to say is make sure everything was up to temperature, and then you could try to do that calibration one more time.
yeah. Now, well, okay. So when we start the calibration, the engine's got to be off. So you think we ought to just like run it for an hour and then try to do the calibration?
Yeah,
Like jack it back
exactly.
up or?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Sounds
Exactly.
good.
So, all right. Well, thanks again.
Thank you, Brace.
All right, yep,
Bye.
bye. Yeah. So that, sometimes those pump calibrations are hard to actually get into. They don't always take for some reason, man. And you just got to fight with it. And sometimes they'll take, but what's Justin saying about his 770? The unit would not shut off found codes for engine compartment over tip. Yeah. This had rear cooling fans mounted to the rear door. Found someone pulled the fuse out, but the fuse in and fans were running with unit off, like short to power. Had power on 30 and control side when not shorted. Long story short, someone put the wrong 5-pin relay. Oh,
Wow,
That's-
nice find.
that is a good find. And so what he's saying is the rear fans and the door run
the
off
bigger
of a
machines,
different relay. Now it looks like you can put a regular 5-pin relay in there, but if you just got a single pole single throw versus a
Double
single
pole?
pole double throw
Okay.
is what the fans are, because we've got two latches in that relay now running those fans. So yeah, although a standard relay will fit, I've seen that before too, man. That was a good catch. So yeah, and the large frame machines that have the fans in the rear door would do have a different relay. Great catch, man. That is awesome. I love to hear stuff like that. So,
He's asking about the code for the air filter again. Remember, you said just replace the air filters.
oh, I was wondering. Yeah, you said he cleaned the air filters. I just wonder if maybe replacing them would.
That's what I would try, just replacing them and see if the code goes away.
Yeah, that's weird on the T76. I'm trying to think. And there's no restriction, no, because that one kind of pulls from the side of the unit. So I don't think there's a restriction to the airbox at all. So either we got a bad sensor, or I just tried to
He said they were
replace.
replaced.
They were, okay. All of them are replaced. That would just lead me back to the sensor then.
The switch? Is it a
Yeah,
switch on this
It
one?
is
or-
a switch, yeah. Yeah. Just either an on and
Stuck.
off switch, yeah.
So it's probably stuck on the on.
That's what I would try.
He's asking about your email, the guy with the 873.
Mm-hmm. Did it not work?
I'll just type it to him.
Okay.
Which one do you want me to put?
Brady at southvalleyequipment.com. Let's see. Dan says he switched to offering that include every oil change. Hopefully I can prevent some future. Yeah, that's just like cheap insurance really to replace that drive motor oil. Because like I said, a lot of people just don't even know that drive motor oil is in there. And depending on the machine, they don't want to do it. Some machines you can do from the outside. Some of the motors you have to take the track and the sprocket off in order to do the oil. So the fact that you can sell that kind of an upsell, that's awesome, man. Well, awesome. It looks like we're all caught up on questions today. I think we lost a lot of people with our technical issues that we had at the beginning, but
Yeah, we had like 8 calls coming in all at the same time.
I know we did have a lot of calls coming in, so sorry we missed a few of those. But yeah, as far as business, gosh, we've just been wide open with. He says he sees a Hitachi back there, and I'm sorry you even had to see that. I'm embarrassed.
Yeah, who put that there? There you go.
What is it? There it is. Rear main seal, pump coupler, and came apart. And what else? Oh, we're going to do a shaft seal
Shaft
on
seal
the
on the
hydraulic pump.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a friend of ours. He kind of runs his own little rental business, and that's one of his rental machines that he rents out, and just had a bad engine oil leak coming from the rear main seal. He said that rear main seal when he popped it out was just barely in there, right?
Yeah. Dan says he doesn't see that cat anymore. Hope that went well. let's just yeah.
Okay, next question. So, yeah, we moved the cat out, man. It looks like everything we traced back went back to the ECU, man. We were still having that issue, but the thing is, Dan, so it came into us with literally the injection pump. So we're talking about a Cat 289D, which has
Kubota
the
engine.
Kubota, yeah,
Common
common
rail.
rail. Thank you. Engine in it, and it came to us. The injection pump literally exploded
In half, like literally.
Yeah, and when it did, it took out the reluctor wheel and the gear that drives that fuel pump. So we had to replace the reluctor wheel,
The gear, the,
the
pump.
gear, yeah, fuel rail, everything. And after we started it, yeah, we got that cam sensor.
First, we had a code for cam sensor signal erratic or abnormal or whatever.
Mhm.
And then we messed with it, and then we replaced the sensor, and it changed to abnormal pulse frequency or
32-8 or something. But everything on that code says open or short, according to CAT.
Yeah, it says no signal detected from the cam sensor.
So we're like, okay. So we checked all the wiring all the way back to it. Everything was good.
Load tested it, did everything.
Yeah,
every wire that goes
load
to
tested,
and
continuity,
from
checked for
the
shorts.
sensor, brand new sensor is good. It's good.
Back to the ECM, but it's only that much wire, so it's pretty easy to check all that. So
we even called the head honcho CAT guy, and he just said,
he's like, yeah,
"Oh, replace the harness."
Replace the harness. That's CAT's troubleshooting.
It sounds an awful lot like another CAT.
Yeah. Replace the harness if we can't figure it out. So it's not derating it. That's a secondary sensor.
When the cam sensor is gone, you just get a hard start.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it a hard start. It's just a slower start because it's just relying on just the.
If you lose the crank sensor by itself, then your engine will derate. If you lose both, it won't start. Yep. So, or I don't know.
So we're thinking. I mean, all it can be is the ECU at that point, or a reluctor wheel. But we know the reluctor wheel's spinning. You know, we've checked everything, dude. So it kind of seems like it's going back to the ECM for some reason. And we've never worked on this machine. We've never seen it running. We didn't know if the codes were there before. It had a lot of logged codes too, didn't it?
A lot of logged codes.
Yeah. So we don't really know the history and everything on it. So instead of keep throwing money and parts at it, the guy's going to just take it and run it for now. And we just got a light on the dash, so it's not derating, not affecting anything. It still runs good, a little bit of a slow start, but he's just going to take it and run it. So I did not get to that.
Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that it was not the stop switch. I did check that. Now, every call I get now, first thing I check is the stop switch.
We got another CAT out there that's got issues too. That's pointing back to the computer.
Yeah, a Cat 315, a big excavator outside we're working on that also has, what is it? It's for the coupler, right? For the pin coupler.
It's the solenoid for the coupler. And you follow the troubleshooting tree. Did the same thing. I load tested my wire all the way through from the little panel by the armrest all the way back to the solenoid itself, and it's good all the way through.
Coils are good, swapped coils, everything.
Yep, everything looks good.
But it runs through the ECU. So I talked to him today, and he's wondering if we can just bypass the ECU. And I said I did not look into that option, but we'll see if we can just run like a analog signal to run that pin coupler or something. Yeah.
Yep.
So
it's already got a switch on it. So all we'd have to do is just take it out of the thing and just hook it up to the switch or something.
That's what I'm thinking. I want to look at it again tomorrow if we have time. It seems like every CAT that comes through here is just kicking us in the. Yeah. Well, it came in here for separate issues and we got everything else fixed. And he's like, oh, while it's there, you think you can take a look up? Or yeah, sure. No problem. And of course, that's the one that's giving us problems. Yep. So all the other stuff was no big deal.
We got a question here. He says, I'm out of warranty on my 595. I was looking for a different hydraulic oil and motor oil alternative. Seems like every time I go to my local Bobcats parts, oil goes up.
It does. It does keep going up, actually.
What do we run?
So we're running Shell Rotella T5 is what we like to run, 10W30 on the engine side. it kind of depends on your climate as well, what you want to run. If you're in a real hot climate, stay with the 1540. If you're kind of in a cooler climate, then go with the 1030. But that T5 is a semi-synthetic Rotella. It's a really good oil. I like it. And the machines just run really good with that oil in there, especially in the cold. It helps get that oil up to the turbo a little quicker with that thinner oil. And in extreme cold environments, we like to run the Valvoline 0W40 fully synthetic on the engine side. The T595, you're okay with like an AW46. We are running we're also running a Shell. It's a Bobcat spec from Shell. What is it called? He's got it. We buy it in bulk, but it is Bobcat spec. But
It's a S2 MX46.
Oh, MX46 is the Bobcat spec from Shell Rotella, if you can find that. But even an AW46 is okay. It's when you get in the R series and like the Superflow machines, the T86, S86 is when Bobcat's saying, look, you've got to use the oil they're using, because it's a really good oil. A lot of magnesium or zinc and all in there. Hang on, I'm getting sidetracked here on what additives are in there, but we're high on that. It's a really good oil is what I'm getting at, and they have it specifically designed and engineered to run those machines. So, but on the 595, like I said, you're okay with an AW46. It should be fine. And engine oil, we could go on that. Everyone's got their own taste and what they want to use in engine oil, but Shell Rotella T5 10W30 is a really good oil. So let's see. Mr. Flynn says if you have time, you see how to diagnose code easier 021.
Man,
So that what we've got is an engine code on a T450 with 1,800 hours. So looks like
almost
Mike
had
is all over it here. See
It
if you can
keeps-
get that looked
My,
up.
my keyboard is
Is it getting sticky?
no. I think it needs to be plugged in.
Oh, okay, could be. Let's see. Dan says that's a hard one. I know it's always something. Dan uses AMSOIL commercial grade 15W40 and ISO 46 for the hydraulics. Yeah, ISO 46 is what's going to be on the Bobcat containers. So that's still a good oil. Either one, AW, ISO. ISO is what we like to recommend, but either one will work. What's the commercial grade AMSOIL 1540? I guess it's less. I haven't seen the AMSOIL commercial grade. But AMSOIL is good stuff. So let's see if we can find that E002791-05. Nothing.
I can find it.
So let me see. High synthetic content. I'm not familiar with that code. Do you
It's an
have
EGR code.
EGR? Oh, crap.
EGR motor fault. Yeah, EGR motor fault is the code.
Yeah, so T450, the track machine's got the D24, and it's not uncommon for those EGRs to have motor failures on them. And sometimes you would get an H-bridge code. H-bridge is what we call it's a simple circuit that allows that EGR to reverse the polarity and run the EGR motor in different directions. It's called an H-bridge code. That would go out, but that's basically an EGR motor failure. So it's on the back. So I don't know that I have a whole lot of help for you on that other than replacing the EGR, and you have to do the whole thing. And depending on what year you have, being 1,800 hours is probably a little bit older. We've got an updated EGR kit now, so it's kind of a pain to do, but usually with that code, I think that's what you're going to run into is we're going to be replacing that.
Half of my buttons don't work.
Just half of them. Guys, nothing but technical
at
issues
that.
today.
C doesn't work.
The C doesn't work.
Neither does my backspace.
That's interesting.
What in the world?
The
Do you-
EGR codes will usually derate the machine at some point. He's
Yeah.
asking if it's okay to run with the EGR code. I mean, ideally, you'd want to get it fixed.
So you can run your machine at full power.
Yeah, and depending on if it's stuck open or closed, if it's stuck open, we're just getting more
Exhaust gas.
than you would want
No
into
bueno.
the engine. Yeah,
You don't want any of it.
yeah. So, I mean, if you're just trying to finish up a job or something, and it's not derating you, it might be okay. But yeah, I don't know. All right. Same guy with the T870's calling back in. Let's see if it's still running okay.
Oh,
All right. What'd you find?
yes, sir. That worked. I got it up to temperature about 165 degrees, and then we turned it off, performed the drive calibration, and it worked.
Perfect.
Beautiful, man. I like to hear that. Yeah. Sometimes those things are finicky, and yeah, sometimes it's a temperature issue. So, all right. So you're good and calibrated. You
And
should be good
no-
to go.
Yeah, no active codes. Calibration performed.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you for the update. I appreciate that.
Okay.
All
Talk
right.
to you
See
later.
you, buddy.
Bye.
Appreciate it.
Look at what Phone Nickel said.
First time caller. Request this week's top 10.
That's from before my time when the radio used to actually work.
What was his name? Casey Kasem. Wasn't it Casey Kasem?
I don't know. I
how
never
that
listened
is
to the
always did the
radio.
top 10.
Listen to Spotify, bro.
That's funny. Yeah, Casey Kasem's top
Radio
10.
doesn't even work in my truck.
That's funny. Well, that's good that he got his T870 straightened out. He was trying to he called in a few minutes ago and he's trying to run that drive motor calibration and it kept failing. It would go through the steps. It would run the tracks forward and backwards, but it just would not complete it. So we recommended getting the machine up to temperature. So yeah, he ran it for, well, just since we've been sitting here talking. So it couldn't have been more than 30 minutes or so.
Oh, he was digging in the dirt,
Yeah.
doing wheelies.
Got it up to temperature, jacked it back up, and it finally took a drive calibration. So awesome, man. Right. Are we all caught up?
Yep.
Nobody else wants to call in?
Phone Nickel doesn't want to call in.
We you know what? Let's talk about that real quick because he called in this morning. He had a throttle. I
It
think
was a
it's
throttle
called
pedal.
secondary throttle calibration
Yep.
code that would come up, and he was asking how to. Which he's got a pretty good TikTok as well.
The guy from the 5.
Guy from
Shout
the
out.
5. Yeah, there you go. He's very mechanically inclined, very capable. I like to watch his stuff. Always learning something new, but you know, you won't always know how to do these little certain things. So anyways, it was a secondary foot throttle. And what happens is sometimes if we run an update on the main controller or change a controller or something, you have to do a foot throttle calibration. So what you have to do is you have to press and hold the auto idle button. And what'd you say? 3, 4, 5 seconds maybe, and it'll pop up on the screen. It'll say foot. And at that time, you let go of that switch. You push your foot throttle to the floor, let off. And then it won't give you a code right away. It usually takes a few seconds, but it should code out and tell you that it was calibrated. And then you can just cycle your key switch and you should be good to go with your foot throttle as far as the calibration goes. And I recorded one today. It was kind of a short one that kind of going back to you wouldn't always know what to look for. So what I went out on today was it's a Bobcat mini excavator. It was a E55. So he called and said that all his hydraulics are slow, everything. So sure enough, I went out there and the stick, the boom, the drive, the blade, everything was slow. So I've seen this many of times. That's kind of how I know how to fix it. But what would you think, Mike? If you went out, let's just say you went out to this job, everything was slow. Where would you start?
I would probably hook up my flow meter and check pump flow. Flow equals speed, I guess.
And how do you hook up a flow meter? Though, would you probably go through the
To
auxiliaries?
the auxiliary
maybe?
couplers, correct?
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember why Bobcat said that wasn't the best way to do it or something, but that is a way to do it. Okay, so you put it on and you look at your flow meter, and of course you have low flow, which we already knew that because
Correct, 'cause
everything
it's
was slow. So yeah, where would you go?
Maybe try to adjust see if the pump settings have been messed with at all.
Everything looked good. The paint and everything was perfect. Nobody had any wrenches or anything on the pump. So
Then I guess I would suspect that my pump is worn out. I don't know.
yeah, and that's what I think people, because and that's kind of the thing, because I know you haven't mess with those load sensing pressure compensating pumps as much as some of us have, just doing it over the years. But if you were to ask that question like on Facebook or something like that, everyone's going to say, well, do you have hydraulic oil in it? Have you changed your filters? Or
Yeah.
Maybe your pump's bad or something like that. So what we have on these pumps, and I'll get this video done this week. So I know I've been bad about recording videos and getting them posted, but let's see, Eastern Equipment says off the back of the pumps. Did I miss something there?
Nope.
Or back off. So anyways, on our piston pump on that excavator, what happens is we've got signal pressure. So we've got signal pressure going to our pump. So when we move a lever, that signal pressure.
You're talking about load control.
Load control.
I mean,
load sense.
Load sense.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's load sense is our signal pressure. Yeah. So it's a load sense is what that circuit is called. It goes into our pump. So when we request a movement, stick, boom, bucket, whatever the case may be, that load sense pressure goes through our margin and everything, and that goes through it's an orifice inside the pump, and that it allows that signal oil to go to the torque limiter and move the torque limiter out of the way so that the swash plate can stroke the pump up. So this orifice in the pump is designed to keep that signal oil slow, so it doesn't, it wants to keep the machine, the movements, the pump flow smooth. So it's not like going and hitting that torque limiter with a hammer and just moving things real fast. That's the theory behind it. What happens over time, and again, this is theory, that torque limiter, it should move freely inside of there, but they do start to stick over time. And this thing's got over 2,500 hours on it. And if you pull one apart, you won't see any scarring or anything. I mean, everything looks perfect inside. So that's why I'm saying that's the theory behind it, because we can't actually see the failure inside the pump. But it's just getting stuck a little bit. So that margin oil is going in there, or load sense oil is going in there, but it's just kind of hitting the end of it and just not moving it. So when we take this orifice out, now instead of having a garden hose, now we have a fire hydrant, shooting the oil into that load or the torque limiter. And now it can move that swash plate. So the oil gets there faster. Instead of sticking, it just kind of pushes it out of the way and gets things moving. But it's still smooth and stuff. So we really didn't even need that that orifice in there. And it's
Will
kind
that cause increased wear on that torque limiter?
No, not really. That we know of, that we've ever seen. We've been taking that out forever. And that's what Bobcat recommends. Just take it out and leave it out. And there's really nothing you could do, because people's replaced the torque limiter, and the torque limiter is as much as a whole new pump. I think even more in some cases. So we just take that orifice out, leave it out, and it runs perfect. So that's exactly what dang, I kind of spoiled the end of the video then, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Sorry about that.
But it's okay. There's only 29 people watching.
Oh, so nobody's even going to know anyway. So, okay. All right. What time is 5:15? So
let's see what we got.
Um,
Personally, haven't checked flow on a Bobcat besides through the aux. What was the other method you spoke about last week? Justin Jose getting cut off again.
Oh man, why do we keep cutting him off? Because he asked really good questions. But we got a call coming in from Oregon. Let's see what we've got going there. You're on live with Brady and Mike. What can we do for you?
Hi, Brady. I had a off the wall question. I have a Bobcat 331 excavator, and I went and removed and replaced the fuel shutoff valve. And the reason being is, this one day I jumped in the cab and went to go ahead and turn it off after I was done using it, and it just the instrument cluster, all the lights go out when I shut it off, but the actual engine just stays on. So that's why I went and removed and replaced the fuel shutoff valve. And is there maybe a relay in between, maybe in the wiring or something like that? Because I've gone through quite a bit through it, and I just couldn't find anything, and I didn't know if something like that was like a common thing.
Yeah, it can be. So depending on the serial number of that machine, more than likely on a 331, I would look at this. Need to look at the serial number because they had multiple models of that. But what we had was on the earlier ones, we had a fuel timer relay, which should be very close to the fuel shutoff solenoid plug. So if you follow that plug down 5 or 6 inches, it should go into a relay assembly, and that's a fuel shutoff timer. And I've got a video that kind of shows how that works. If you got a newer serial number, then your relay and fuse is going to be in the fuse relay box assembly. But I would think yours has the timer on it, being that it's sticking like that. And in that place, it would just replace the timer.
I know on the skid steers, I think I watched your video, and there was, I think, a timer on the skid steers, but on this, it just didn't seem like there was anything. And I pulled the relays and the fuses and you name it. So I didn't know if maybe if there was maybe somewhere there was something in between. I just thought I'd give you a call and ask.
Yeah. Do you have your serial number by chance?
I do.
Okay.
I'm sorry to keep you.
No worries.
It's 232
Okay.
512
Okay.
840.
So what
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So what I like to do is I just like to punch that in for those who are watching. And then that way we can go straight to, it's partscatalog.bobcat.com. And I can see exactly what system we have on that machine. So let me look real quick. See if you've got that timer. It's not looking like it. So you do have an FRC fuel 7 switch ignition. Yep. So you've got a panel and a fuse. So yeah, in your fuse box with all the relays, you said you did pull the fuel shutoff relay.
I did. I replaced it, and then I took one of the relays since they're all the same. I just went and pulled one out, swapped them, and absolutely made no difference.
Yeah, and it wouldn't because the relay is actually for the pull circuit. That's what pulls that relay out. And we've got a separate hold circuit that comes straight from your controller. So it sounds like either we've got a shorted wire or maybe the controller itself is bad, because there's actually a relay or a switch inside the controller that is sending that 12 volt. It's a low amperage, 1 amp, 12 volt signal. I think that fuel shutoff solenoid should be 10 ohms, I think, on that hold circuit. So I'm thinking it could be a panel issue. If you traced everything back to the panel and you can't find any wires shorted to power, then I'm going to say that's an issue with the panel itself.
The instrument cluster?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So,
well, I'll give her a shot.
So you can go out there
Go
now,
ahead.
start the machine, and it'll stay running if you turn it off.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
I usually just, on the injection pump, I usually just, grab onto the, the lever off of the fuel shutoff valve and just do it manually and shut it off.
Okay. And if you can manually shut it off, then it sounds like maybe something's just sticking. But you put a new solenoid on there, right?
I did.
Yeah, because if that hold circuit has voltage to it, you almost can't pull that magnet off the end of that solenoid by hand without really pulling hard.
Yeah, it just doesn't have that. I think the higher amperage or the 12 volts to keep that solenoid pulled in, so it'll go ahead and. I think when I was messing with it, it just went. It's been a while, but because I just been going out there and manually doing it. But
so I wonder if it has ghost voltage on it. So what I would do is if that panel is bad, it could have some ghost voltage going over to it. So pull the panel out and don't try to pry the panel out. You'll kind of break the tabs on there. You want to pull that whole gray cover off that the panel is held in with, you'll pull your little armrest level off or lever, little armrest piece, and then just pick a couple screws out of that silver panel and lift that whole thing up, and then you can get underneath that panel. And when the machine is sticking in the on position, just start unplugging those plugs out from underneath the panel. There's going to be 5 or 6 plugs on there, again, depending on your serial number. And see if it shuts off at some point when you unplug one of those plugs. And if it does, then that's going to tell me there's something wrong inside that panel.
Okay. No, I appreciate it.
No problem.
I was going to say one last thing.
Uh-huh.
Today I just found out you were talking about hydraulics and all that as far as not performing really bad as far as poor.
Mm-hmm.
This is just a shot in the dark, but on the right-hand side of the seat, it's called a pattern selector valve.
Yep.
Well, on mine, it just, the little handle sticks out, the little rod handle. And I was going to say mine was basically right in the middle. And I just thought I'd mention that to anybody else that might have that problem because, one of the solutions. And once I moved it all the way to the right, then all the hydraulics started working just great. I thought, wow, I thought I was looking at a new pump.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And thanks for bringing that up. Thanks for mentioning that, because even on some of our newer machines, that pattern selector valve kind of sticks out where people can hit it with their foot, or they're throwing crowbars or chains and binders or paint cans or whatever there, and they'll hit that valve and it'll be open a little bit. So your boom and stick, it seems like you'll have bucket, blade, and travel, but your boom and stick is the two that you're going to lose pressure on. Right?
I've done that before. When I was in the shop, I moved it to the middle on accident, and like nothing worked. So
nothing worked. Okay.
I did like a service or something, and I moved it on accident, and I started up the machine, and nothing was working, and it freaked me out. I'm like, what is happening? So yeah, that's happened to me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, that's a very good possibility. I always check the pattern selector switch. Cool.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it, Brady.
Yeah, no problem. Save that number. Shoot me a text. Let me know what you find on that. Fuel shut off solenoid. If you unplug those and it doesn't shut off, then we can kind of trace that out and go to plan B. I'd like to follow up with you on that, though.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for calling. Bye.
You too. Take care. Thanks. Bye.
See, I love it when people come up with stuff like that. So when we're rambling on here, it's one thing we're out of the machine. We kind of think of that. But when we're rambling on here, we don't think about checking that stuff or mentioning to check that stuff. So,
yep.
Where are we at?
Justin Jose was asking, what was the other method you did to
a direct pump test? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes.
So the direct pump test is where we come directly off the pump. So if we're doing charge pressure, we would want to come off the charge hose that goes straight into the fan, make an adapter to go into your flow meter. And if we're checking the gear pump, we're going to take the hose from the main control valve and we're going to plumb that through our flow meter. But what I was mentioning is I don't always use a flow meter, because to me, in most cases, if I can make pressure, then I can make flow. And instead of carrying a big expensive flow meter everywhere with me, I can just do it with a ball valve. But I don't recommend people doing it with a ball valve, because like Mike said last week, if you accidentally you're trying to build pressure and you shut that, or you use a cheap ball valve and not a hydraulic ball valve, something's going to blow up. You can get hurt doing a direct pump test without the proper, when you run it through a flow meter, there's going to be a main relief or a relief valve in the flow meter. So even if you shut it all the way off, you're going to go over relief inside the flow meter. And if you're checking at the auxiliary couplers, you're protected by the main relief in the system. But if you're doing a direct pump test without a main relief, you could get hurt if something went wrong. So I don't recommend people doing it the way I do it. But maybe I think that's what you were talking about.
I was going to say, Phone Nickel, you should give us a call for that question. It'd be a lot easier to talk to you about that question.
Good.
If you can.
Because Mike's going to answer that one.
Nope. He says 2018 S550 arms only lift at max RPM. All other functions are good.
Read that again, but slower for me.
S550. Arms only lift at max RPM.
And all other functions are good.
Correct.
Bad. Where are you reading that at?
That is Paul S.
Paulus. I don't know. Oh,
It's
you're
purple.
way up there. I thought we were down at the
Nope.
bottom. Okay. Max RPM, all other functions are good. So when you say all other functions, I would imagine that it tilts because you probably don't have a bucket on it, or it will kind of tilt the bucket. So it'll tilt the bucket. So what I'm getting at here is more than likely your gear pump is bad. So this is where we would do a pressure test on the auxiliary couplers. We put a gauge. You can even deadhead into a gauge on one of the auxiliary couplers. So make you a little adapter or something, put a gauge on the aux coupler and see if you can make pressure. So you need to make 3,500 PSI roughly. And then we can see, well, yeah, about 3,500 PSI. Let's get this call. Let me put you on hold for just a second.
Yeah, no problem.
So when you, let's see. Yeah, so you need to be making at least 3,000 PSI. If you're not making more than 2,000 PSI, you just don't have enough pressure to raise the lift arms. They're really heavy. And the gear pump is separate from the hydrostatic pump. And that's why
It drives okay.
Yeah, your drive and everything will be fine. So, and you might even have charge pressure too, because the charge pump, but usually once you lose a gear pump, you've lost the charge pump because they are kind of in one piece. But yeah, check your pressure at your aux coupler, and you could have a bad main relief, but I doubt it. I'm leaning more toward the pump itself. So, all right, call in from California. What can we do for you?
Hey, what's up, Brady? This is Joel calling in. Paul Nickel, the guy from the Five, I guess, whatever.
Yes, sir.
Okay, awesome.
Yes, sir.
Awesome, man. Mike's got you covered.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
I'll try my best.
Because not quite sure, because I've seen it happen twice already. Once when it was in the yard, and then another time when it was out on a job site. So it'll throw I don't know what codes are it off the top of my head. It's like E000 something. It'll throw two different codes, but it'll say like something about the ECM not detected or something it's not detecting something with the ECM.
Yeah.
And what I'll do is I'll just swap out the relays on the bottom. I swap like the main power relay with the glow plug one, and then the machine will turn on, but I'll lose the dash. So then I took the I forget what's next to the power one. I think it's like the defrost or something relay. I swapped that one out, and then I'll get everything to come back normally, and the code's gone, and then the machine runs normal. So I'm assuming maybe one of those relays might be going bad, and that's why it's throwing out random computer codes.
Yeah, because the circuit, I think the ECM, the computer has a relay to turn it on,
Yeah,
the main
yeah.
power.
It does. So a lot of
That's the one with
times,
the
yeah, a lot of times we just find that problem in the fuse box where they put the fuse boxes. What model was it again? I'm sorry.
It is a 590.
a 590.
Yeah, I think it's going to be something either because those sockets, those pins and those sockets get wore out, and
He's talking about behind the. No, you're talking about the pins.
yeah,
Where you unplug the relay.
yeah, I call that the socket. The pins will be on the relay. The sockets themselves just get wore out, loose, corroded, and even on the fuses. So it could be either the fuse or the relay on that.
But it sounds like when you swap the fuse, it fixed the problem. I mean, swap the relay, it fixed the problem.
Yeah, I've seen that happen with a couple of them, and I've just always wondered about them, but never was able to speak to anyone that knew what it would be, because I'd run into some problems, and I'm like, just swap relays, and then everything will come back alive, and it just was like, okay, as long as it got the tractor moving again, I just like stopped worrying about it until I come run up into it again.
That's about the only thing you can do with those weird codes like that are intermittent. If you swap it and it was working, yeah, just run it until it happens again, then dive into it deeper. Yep.
Okay. All right. And then just curious, we have like four T110s, and then I've noticed they'll I believe it might be like a worn out drive pump or something, because these guys you have no functions as far as driving or hydraulic functions when it's in at low throttle. But as soon as you hit the throttle, put it in full throttle, everybody comes alive. But those machines have been there with the company since I've started, or since I came in. So that's why I just can only think it's like maybe the pumps are just worn out.
Do the lift and tilt work okay?
Yeah, once everything's in full throttle, everything works normally. But if you're in low throttle, you feel like the machine has no, for lack of a better term, it has no balls whatsoever.
So everything at low or
Yeah.
low idle, every hydraulic function.
Yeah.
I would wonder if maybe there's an issue with like your drive belt or something. What do you think?
Okay.
Yeah, if everything's giving you a
Everything.
problem.
Maybe it's not like tensioned enough or something.
Possibly.
Okay.
Unless the whole system's wore out, but I kind of doubt that.
I doubt that. All of it at
Yeah.
once.
Yeah.
If it's everything
Because
together,
it'll turn on. They'll turn on fine, and then like I want to say they'll slowly drive, but not how they're supposed to. And then as soon as you kick it into full throttle, it'll drive normally. You get your lift functions, your tilt functions, everything works as intended. But at low throttle, it's like you really got to step on the pedal, and then you'll see them just barely move, or like you're just messing up your ankle or your tip of your toes just pushing on the pedals.
For how long does that last?
Just if anytime you're in low throttle, but if you put it full throttle, everything comes to life like it should be. So that's the only thing I can guess is like maybe that pump is just worn out.
That's what it sounds like. So that's when we would do and Justin was just asking and just kind of leaning into another question. He said,
so would you test all of the pumps?
Well, if everything is slow, he said it's barely lifting or tilting. I mean, yeah, we could test all the pumps, but I would just,
and the drive too.
And the drive too, yeah. So, but I would start with the gear pump. Just build you a little adapter and put on the auxiliary coupler with a pressure gauge, a 5,000 psi pressure gauge, and see if you can make your relief pressure, which should be around 33 to 3,500 psi. So start with the gear pump first. Just deadhead a gauge right into the aux port and see if you can make pressure. And if you're not making pressure, then at low idle, you should still even be able to make pressure. And if not, that just tells me that the pumps are wore out. And you can do the same thing on the drive pumps. Just take one of your drive hoses off, deadhead right into a gauge. I like to run an extension on a gauge, so a hose that comes out from underneath the cab so I can put the cab down. And just build your little adapter. Come take a drive hose off the pump, put your hose and your coupling on the pump, run it underneath the cab so you can kind of look at it while you're in there, and just drive forward or backwards, whichever port you put it on, and see if you can. On the drive pumps, you should be able to make 5,000 psi because they got a separate relief inside the pump. So,
okay.
Yeah, check those two pressures and let us know what you find on that, and then we can kind of go to plan B after that if you're actually making pressure. But if it's not moving, it tells me you're not making pressure. But let's just verify that first.
Okay, yeah, that gives me a good place to start from. Just mess with the gear pump first, and then just take it from there. Check everybody else after.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Gear pump's the easiest thing to check. Yep.
All right, cool. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Right,
just give me somewhere to mess with.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it, fellas.
See you, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. All right, have a good one.
Bye. So that's interesting. Why everything is slow. Yeah. But
that's what I thought. Maybe the drive belt, because they're all connected through there.
I know that's probably the best one. So, all right, I think we got one coming in from Arizona here. Hello, you're live. Tech Talk Tuesday. What can we do for you?
Hey, my name's Todd. Thanks for taking my call. I'm curious about the timing when installing a D24 high pressure fuel pump. Whether I need to do it or whether I don't need to do it, and how do I do it?
Sure. So I think that's I did explain kind of why it should be in one of my videos. So a common rail system, in theory, what we do is when you put the injection pump in, we're just building pressure and maintaining pressure in the common rail. So the pump's just spinning, right? and just sending pressure up to the rail. So we don't necessarily have to time it in that sense. To be 100% most efficient, optimal running conditions, and yes, we would in that case want to time the pump. And I'm glad you kind of, well, I was reading the text where you said the whiteboard where I kind of explained how it's a frequency. So on those pumps, we have 2 pistons inside of there. And, you know, we basically have 1 cylinder firing, of course, every stroke,
You go like this, remember?
right. Yeah. So it's basically a freak. So basically what we want is we want that piston inside the injection pump at the highest possible pressure when it fires the injector. So that's why we time it, if that makes sense. However,
It certainly does. Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about, what do we call it? Micro seconds, or it's so minute that it's really not going to make any difference or any noticeable difference ever. But how do you time it? You can time that pump by putting the crank pulley. You're going to have a mark on the crank pulley on the front cover. Just line the crank pulley up with the mark on the front cover. It does not matter if you're top dead center on either number 1 or number 4. That's why it doesn't matter if it's compression stroke on number 1 or number 4. We just turn that around until you line up the mark on there. It doesn't matter which. Does that make sense? Doesn't matter if it's compression stroke or not.
Yes, certainly. Yep.
And the reason that is because we have 2 pistons. So either way, either if we're on number 1 or number 4 compression stroke, because that's the way that engine works, one of those pistons is going to be at top dead center. And
will the pump have a corresponding mark?
So the pump has a different mark, and I'd have to find my picture, and unfortunately it's not on this computer. If you want to email me at brady@southvalleyequipment.com, I can send you that picture, and it'll show you how to line up that mark in the gear, and then how to install that pump. I've got that picture somewhere. It's easier to show a picture than explain how to do it, because there is a notch, but it's hard to explain where it is on that pump.
I will have all of this hardware in my hands tomorrow, so I'm sure I'll see the mark. What was that email? Brady@saltvalley.equipment.com.
That's it. Yep, all spelled out.
All right. All right. I think you've cleared up some mystery for me. I do appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Yeah, long story short, you really don't have to time it. But if you want to be 100%, then yeah, go ahead and time it. It's not going to hurt anything. It'll be even better to time it, I guess. You think so, Mike?
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Very good.
All right. Well, thanks again for calling in.
Thank
Appreciate it.
You guys, thanks, Brady.
See you, buddy. Bye. Yeah, it's common rails. It depends on, I guess, the machine, and it's like that cat. They recommend doing it because we're running that cam sensor off of that reluctor wheels, because it's on the injection pump itself. So, did you look up P1130-F9?
P1130
Fuel filter inlet pressure level.
Oh, I was going to say for Justin Jose, you can deadhead up. Yes, you can deadhead up hydraulic pressure gauge to one of the auxiliary ports. Yes.
Yeah.
That'll work.
That's the way I like to do it. Then you turn the machine off and it'll slowly bleed itself back down so you can release it.
I always had a flow meter and I just hooked it up to both. And then you just crank it all the way down and that'll tell you what your relief pressure is.
Mm-hmm.
But that was an expensive, nice flow meter.
Yeah. And so for $50 and $2,000, you can have that flow meter, but for $50, you can just put a 5,000 PSI gauge on the front of there and a couple fittings and just plug it right in. I like to plug in on the bottom port. So your gauge will be hooked into a male fitting and you'll plug into the female port.
So yeah, luckily for us, South Valley will be getting us one here soon. So
yeah. Yeah, eventually. I mean, we're always investing in something. I don't have one of those. I used to have a manual, but now that I do everything by pressure, not necessarily flow, when we start setting up hydraulic excavators, we do have to have flow.
Correct.
Um,
To do, yeah.
But on the skid steers, I very rarely need to know flow on those machines. So, but yeah, just deadhead right into it. And like I said, if you go on that female port, to release the pressure, just push in on the port. Not like you're releasing it, but if you push the port into the block, it'll relieve the pressure, and then you can just pop that gauge right back off.
So he was saying about that code. It's a fuel filter inlet pressure low.
Mhm.
It has done this since brand new. Has had filters, fuel pump replaced by dealer, was running good for about 1 tank of fuel. So far, he has had a derated machine for 3 years. Any idea where to look?
That's terrible.
Inlet pressure low. What about the fuel filter head? Or maybe like did they replace the suction or the suction
control valve or
the suction tube? What's it called? Suction screen?
I would.
Inlet pressure.
Yeah, it's inlet pressure, and you should be between like 8, 10, I think 11 psi, between 8 and 11.
If it's
PSI.
warranty, they should have replaced everything from there back until it fixed it.
So when you turn the ignition on, you hear your fuel pump running, I'm assuming. And T66, so you've got a pre-filter. So we know that the pre-filter's been changed, I guess, right? That's what he said.
Yes, the fuel filter has been changed.
So I'm assuming the pre-filter, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
has filters, fuel pump. Yeah.
Filters and pump. So I just want to make sure. Well, if the fuel pump wasn't running, the machine wouldn't even run. Period. So you
Correct.
are getting some pressure. You're just derated. And I think on that earlier one that I had a 2020 that was doing it that actually just turned out to be a bad sensor itself. But what I would do to kind of troubleshoot a little bit on that is real cheap, man. You can get you an oil pressure gauge from Harbor Freight, tee it in to that line going into the pump. It's just a rubber line, just cut it if you have to and just tee in a cheap
Then
oil
you
pressure
can
gauge.
verify if you're actually getting
that 8
what
to
you're
10
actually
psi.
getting.
So if you're getting that and your sensor's not recognizing that, then I think it's going to be a sensor issue. It could even be a wiring issue from the sensor. But man, the dealer should have fixed that pretty easy for you.
Oh, the pressure sensor was replaced.
Pressure sensor is replaced too. So let's verify that pressure. I'd love for you to get back on to me, or back to me on that. Just tee in a cheap gauge and see what our actual inlet pressure is. And that'll tell us right there, because all we're doing is we're measuring back pressure between the pump and the filter head itself. That's all we're measuring. So it's got to be something between the pump and the filter head. And that has a self-bleeding air system in it, so it could be the filter head.
It's the filter head, and then you have hoses, and then you have a pump and a pre-filter, and then you have the suction tube.
Yep.
So,
but that self-bleeding air side of it could be an issue. There could be something open on that filter head. I'm with Mike. If they've done everything else, I would almost.
So look, if you're at a dealer and it's under warranty, you replace something, it doesn't work, you replace something, it doesn't work. It's all free anyway to the customer.
Yeah, even on a 2021, I mean, you should be under the emissions warranty. And I think that would be covered under the emissions warranty because you're derated.
Possibly. Yep.
Yeah. So that is part of the.
They should have replaced everything until it fixed it.
Yeah. I'm going to say filter head on that. But again, $50, probably less than that. I bet you can get an oil pressure gauge off Amazon, just something cheap to see what our
just to verify.
Yeah, fuel pressure is.
I was gonna say Faux Nickel is asking about the software. You can do everything like a dealer can do with our software. You can program the injectors. Just right now, we cannot update machines.
Yeah, our software will do all the updates, but my interface, because we're trying to keep the cost down, right? So my interface, we don't have a remote start box or the capability of turning the machine on from the rear. And I'm working on that right now. So if you were trying to run an update from the software through our interface, what happens is when you update the main controller, it shuts off and resets. Well, when it shuts off the interface because it's powered from that, and it might not complete an update. I mean, sometimes it will, but it doesn't always. So I don't recommend doing updates with it, but I'm working on that. But it is one of the latest versions. And yeah, so
yes, it will program injectors.
Yep.
The engine side.
Yeah, engine side.
Engine side, you can do everything you can do on
that
the
a dealer
side.
can do, and even more. We've got even better software than them. So, yeah. So even on the machine side, we've got better soft. Anyways, yeah, we can talk about that more later. But what we're trying to do is keep our cost down, because just the remote start box from Bobcat's almost 1700 18, somewhere around that range. And even the UVIM from Bobcat's $1,800. So you're $3,000 just for the two interfaces. And then you have to find the software. You can't, Bobcat's not going to give you software. The dealers won't even sell you the damn interfaces, no matter who you are. And I just think
their
that
best
sucks.
customer.
Yeah, they won't even sell it to me, which is, so I said, fine, I'll figure out my own way to do it. So we went straight to Doosan. So ours are not knockoff. I mean, they're their original Doosan stuff. We're just doing it from Doosan, not through Bobcat. So that's how we got around it, and it's all fully licensed and everything. So as far as that goes, it's not knockoff stuff. But to keep our price down on the interfaces. So my whole entire system, I can send you a laptop, all the interfaces, cables, and all the software. For around $2,000. So that's almost the cost of just buying one interface from Bobcat if you could buy it. So
just to get back to Chris with the fuel issue, he said that his pump was replaced twice and the dealer now says it's out of warranty.
we'll see, that's a problem. So what
sucks.
what you'll have to do is you'll have to demand to talk to their TSM.
Yep.
And they're calling it something different now, but if you say TSM, they'll know what you're talking about. Say, this has been going on since I've had the machine. I've been in D-rate since I've owned it. I demand to talk to and don't take no for an answer. If
a Glock 19 will help.
No, we don't. We never resort to violence, of course.
Oh,
but
well, how do you think I got all those parts for so cheap?
I don't resort to but yeah, I mean, just say, because your engine is D-rated, so I'm going to say that would fall under the emission side. The whole fuel system should be covered under the.
They should have fixed it way before you ran out of warranty, dude.
And being that they've tried to fix it, then you have a history that says that nothing they've done has fixed it. So don't take that for an answer. Go straight to the manager at the dealership and then demand to ask the TSM. If that don't work, call Bobcat corporate directly, and someone is eventually going to take care of you.
They'll help you out.
Yep. So
if the dealer gives you a hard time, mention Marvin Heemeyer. Say, I got a bunch of scrap, some 3/8 plate. I'm going to start welding to my skid steer.
Marvin Heemeyer Excavation Company.
Someone said, Todd Father said, he's installing 2 new drive motors on an 05 A300. Any suggestions on fleshing out the hydraulics or prep before installing?
It depends on what the failure was. I think earlier we were talking about on the A300 probably got 2-speed, which has a brake pack in those drive motors, and they may not have a brake pack in there. But, and I believe on a 2005, that's going to be a piston motor. So if you lost your pistons and you sent debris and stuff, that will actually go into the pumps. So it kind of depends on the failure for the preparation. So if you got metal into the system, it possibly could have got into the pumps themselves. So really all you can do is pull the pumps out and flush those. And it just depends on the size of the debris and all. And what actually happened. If it was a brake pack in there, like I said earlier, we were talking about, that should kind of stay inside the case drain side, and it should have been filtered by the main hydrostatic filter before going anywhere else. So, yeah, other than that, if you didn't have a catastrophic failure, just bolt them on and go, and everything else will be taken care of from the filters.
Kevin says, I saw you weld a new tapered piece on a 773 for the tapered Bobcat pin. Where did you get it from?
I think Bobcat.
Yeah,
Bobcat sells them. As a matter of fact, if you got your serial number handy, I'll give you a part number real quick.
Also, Justin Jose says, I guess it's time to start tinkering with the 3D printed remote start box. P.S. Could you send over the cost for software, hardware? Thanks.
Yes. Remote start. Yeah. What I'm trying to do is pin out that remote start capability. I just started on that, and I don't know it's the CAN side that I'm trying to get around right now, cost effectively, basically. But yes, if I end up putting an ignition switch and the interface and everything in there, yeah, I will cut one out, send it to you, and let's see if we can 3D print those. Which I've been shipping out his oil filter wrenches also. So again, appreciate that. If
Shout out Justin Jose.
Yeah, definitely a shout out. He made the oil filter or the fuel filter bowl wrenches for those R series machines. They're awesome. I love them, man. They fit perfect and they work really good. So that is the creator of those.
He says it costs him every time he goes in to replace the filters before they even look at it. Chris,
Say that one more time.
the fuel guy.
Always cost every time it goes in replacing filters. I don't understand what that says.
I think he says he has to pay for filters or something. I don't know. I don't think they cover filters under warranty.
No, not filters. But if they're just guessing, thinking it's I mean, the filters, the main filter is 1,000-hour filter, and I think the pre-filter is too. Maybe, I don't know. I change them both at 500 hours, but I don't remember what the manual says. But man, dude, if you don't have contamination like in the tank or any algae or anything like that, I don't see how they're denying a repair on that. And they're just thinking filters before. Yeah, they're just guessing at that point. So yeah, that's ridiculous.
Todd Father with the A300 says everything is super clean, no debris, encased drains, etc. So
yeah, so
slap that puppy in there.
Yeah, bolt it down and roll, man. So well, awesome. Yeah, Justin says shout out to SVE, South Valley Equipment / Tetrad Group. That's kind of where it all started. And appreciate y'all building this community. We appreciate everybody being here and following us and putting up with their technical difficulties and the calls and everything. It's been a lot of fun. This was fun. We're going to definitely do it again next week. We'll be here next Tuesday. And that's why we do this, is because we get so many calls and texts and emails and YouTube messages. There's just no way we can reply to everything. So we try to take this time to answer all these questions and stuff. So this is time we take out of our day. We're not getting paid for this. We only get paid when donations or
he says they won't look at it till filter is replaced each time before they work on it. Are you serious?
Yeah, it's time to get with your TSM.
Yeah, dude, they're screwing you, dude.
Yep.
That's terrible.
Yep. So yeah, try to get with the TSM and see what's going on. Or
that is terrible.
They need to prove to you that those filters are getting contaminated.
500 hours. They shouldn't even had to have changed it once.
Nope. Dang, Todd Father.
Thank you so much for the $10 donation, man.
Really do appreciate that. That'll help pay off all this expensive equipment that Mike just bought.
Yes, flow meter.
And that'll go toward your flow meter.
That'll go toward my 5500 Cummins.
Your sugar-free Red Bull addiction. So awesome, guys. We've been here for 2 hours doing this. It worked out this time. I'm not sure what the technical difficulties were at first, but I really appreciate everyone being here. Appreciate all the comments, even the call-ins. That was fun. I really enjoyed that. Yeah, and let us know. Did y'all like to hear the actual phone calls? Because that's kind of what we do on our website. You can actually book an appointment. And I actually, when you book an appointment, you tell me what's wrong, serial number, and I go ahead and start researching that, pull schematics.
That's the best way to figure out your question.
Yep.
And the number one best way.
And we can even do a video call. So I'll be right there with you showing, we're looking at the same thing together, and we can go completely through. So, it is our standard hourly rate. It's actually cheaper than our standard hourly rate here. But again, it's not just the time we talk on the phone. It's the prep work we put into making sure that we do everything we can to get your problem solved. And when you do book an appointment at tetradgroup.com. So awesome. Well, thanks again, everybody. Have a good night. We will talk to y'all next week.